Most gardeners leave half their tomato plant's root potential sitting above the soil, and it costs them massive harvests every single season. The old gardener's trick that productive growers have used for generations is not a secret soil amendment or an expensive input. It is a planting method that works with the tomato plant's own biology to build a root system so deep and extensive that drought resistance, nutrient uptake, stem strength, and fruit production all improve simultaneously from the moment the plant goes in the ground. Tomato stems are covered in tiny adventitious root primordia, microscopic hair-like structures that, when buried in moist soil, develop into fully functional roots within days of planting. No other common vegetable crop shares this biological trait at the same scale. Every centimeter of buried stem becomes productive root tissue, meaning a seedling planted with 60 to 70% of its stem below the soil surface develops a root system 2 to 3 times larger than one planted at the same depth as it sat in its nursery pot. A larger root system accesses more water during dry periods, draws a wider mineral range from deeper soil layers, anchors the plant against wind stress, and supports more flower clusters and fruit load per plant than a shallow-rooted equivalent ever could. Dig the planting hole deeper than standard guidance suggests, deep enough to accommodate the buried stem length plus a nutrient layer at the base. Before the seedling goes in, build a slow-release feeding zone at the bottom of the hole using layered organic materials. Start with a generous base of finished compost, which provides the broadest spectrum of plant-available nutrients and improves the moisture retention of the surrounding soil as roots expand into it. Add a small handful of coffee grounds, no more than a tablespoon per hole, for a supplemental nitrogen contribution that supports early leafy growth without the salt accumulation of synthetic nitrogen sources. Lay a dried or fresh banana peel flat in the hole for a potassium source that releases during decomposition and feeds the flowering and fruit development stages directly where the new root system will form. A light dusting of wood ash adds additional potassium and calcium alongside trace minerals that support fruit set. Use it sparingly to avoid pushing soil pH above the 6.2 to 6.8 range that tomatoes prefer. Cover all fresh organic material with a thin layer of soil before the plant roots make contact, creating a buffer that prevents direct root burn from decomposing material during the first weeks of establishment. Strip all leaves from the lower half of the seedling. Any leaf node buried in soil will contribute to root formation, and removing the leaves cleanly prevents buried organic matter from rotting against the stem. Lower the seedling into the hole so that only the top cluster of leaves remains above the soil surface. Firm the surrounding soil gently to eliminate air pockets around the buried stem, then water immediately. For leggy or tall seedlings where a vertical hole would place roots too deep, use the sideways trench method. Dig a shallow horizontal trench. Lay the stem at an angle with roots at the deepest point, and curve the top growth upward out of the soil. The stem straightens toward light within days and the entire buried length develops roots along its full extent. Crowded tomato plants trap moisture between foliage, restrict airflow, spread foliar disease, and compete for root space in ways that reduce individual plant yield significantly. Give each plant enough space for sunlight penetration and airflow through the canopy. One healthy, well-spaced tomato plant consistently outproduces 3 overcrowded weak ones from the same bed area. Water deeply immediately after planting to settle soil around the buried stem, then maintain a deep, less frequent watering schedule that encourages roots to follow moisture downward rather than staying shallow. Apply a mulch layer of straw, dry grass, or shredded leaves around the base to retain moisture, regulate soil temperature, and reduce the surface evaporation that forces shallow root dependence. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the biological payoff of this method becomes visible: thicker stems, faster vertical growth, darker foliage, and earlier flower cluster formation as the plant shifts energy from root establishment into production. Old gardeners understood something modern gardening often forgets: if you build the roots first, the harvest takes care of itself. Subscribe to Natural Crops and AMP. Soil Hub for more evidence-based growing strategies that work from the root zone up. And share this with a fellow gardener still planting tomatoes at nursery depth and wondering why yields never reach their potential.